This is very dangerous. They know that you know, and now they gotta come after you.
Welcome to the Mr. Pitiful Podcast. I'm your boss podcaster, Mr. Pitiful.
Walk and live. Dark and bumbuckler dead.
Coming at you live and direct from a smoke-filled coffee shop in downtown Amsterdam. Welcome. If you are new to the Mr. Pitiful Podcast, basically what I do here is I tell true stories about my life. And here we go. So today's topic is, did I meet a shape-shifting reptilian? Now, I know this sounds crazy, and I'm not saying that I did. I'm going to tell you the story, and it's up to you to decide if I did or not. So let's get to it. So years ago, I owned a small recording studio, and it was nothing fancy. It was just a small project studio, mostly for doing, demos and kind of budget recordings and stuff like that. And I forget how I linked up with this guy. It was through a friend of a friend somehow, but I was familiar with this guy for kind of a while. And he was a cool dude, and he was a very talented musician and an even more talented singer. And somehow he found out I had a recording studio, and he's like, hey, I've got like all kinds of stuff I need to record. Let's link up and start recording. So I was like, cool. So he gets into my studio, and he actually had two projects he was working on. The first project was like sort of a Christian album. I don't even know if it was like an album, but basically what he was doing, he was recording these like little Christian tunes and then licensing them to, I guess, his local church or some religious organization and like collecting the royalties. The other thing he was working on was his own material. It was like a rock and roll band, and the stuff he was doing was awesome, but it was very dated sounding. I want to say, I'm trying to think what I would compare them to. Almost like a cross between Led Zeppelin and the Black Crowes or something like that. So again, awesome music, but it would have been better if it came out circa 1988 versus, I'm trying to think what year this was. I think it was about 2006, 2007 when we were working on this record, basically when MySpace was like at the top of its game and YouTube was kind of just brand new, right? So he had tons of material to record, so he was booking my studio like a lot, and we were hanging out like a lot, and we'd get to talking and stuff during lunch and whatever. And this dude had a reputation for, in the old days anyway, being a bit of a wild man. Dude who was a bit of a womanizer, bit of a drinker, bit of a, I don't know what drugs he was into per se. Doesn't strike me as being into the stimulants so much. I think he was more like into pills, downers, things like that. But here he is, like this Christian guy, and he's a family man, wife and a couple great kids, and very successful guy. And now he's finally getting around to recording these songs he wrote in the 80s. And he wrote with some pretty big people. I mean, one of the tunes I did was like co-written by like Bon Jovi, just to kind of give you an example. So I was always curious how a dude who was such a wild man in the 80s basically became a very pious, very devout Christian. And finally one night I asked him, I was like, hey bro, so like, how was it that you came around to God? And I just want to point out, Mr. Pitiful, I am a agnostic. So agnostic basically means you're not informed enough to make a decision, something like that. I asked him, I'm like, hey bro, so like, how did you become so religious? And his answer was actually kind of shocking. He says to me, because of all the crazy stuff I dealt with when I was mixed up with the record labels, back in the 80s. And I was like, some of the stuff he had witnessed dealing with the record label executives and stuff back in the day. And I was like, well, what do you mean? He goes, they're all into the occult. They're occultists. Now, the word occult actually means hidden. It doesn't really necessarily mean devil worship per se, but just know that what he was talking about specifically was some kind of Luciferian or devil worship, right? So I say to him, well, what kind of stuff did you see with the record labels? And he says, he goes, I used to go to these parties in like the Hollywood Hills in Malibu and stuff, and they conduct these rituals, but a lot of them are like blood drinking rituals, which really freaked him out. And one of the things he said to me too, which didn't really grab me at the time, but now looking back, knowing what I know now, It's a very curious thing. He said not only were there blood drinking rituals at these exclusive parties, he said, but there's women there that are old, but they don't look old. And he says, and the reason they don't look old is there's this chemical that they take that keeps them young. Now, again, at the time, the only reference or sort of thing I could connect that to was an old Star Trek episode called Mudd's Women, which is very interesting. Mudd's Women, if you haven't seen it, it's about this dude, I think his name was Harvey Mudd, but he was basically an intergalactic human trafficker, or like a pimp. And what he did was he picked up these beautiful women and he flew them around to these distant planets where these like lonely men were working, and he would basically sell them wives. And somehow he gets beamed aboard the Star Trek Enterprise with these like 3 just absolute smoke show women. And of course, Captain Kirk, that guy was such a pussy hound, he's trying to hook up. But it turns out these women are only young and beautiful because they take something called the Aphrodite drug. And if they miss their dose, basically in real time, they become, old and haggard and shriveled up again. So I thought that was kind of funny, comparing that to the Star Trek episode. But knowing what I know now, this kind of sounds like adrenochrome, what he's talking about. He didn't know the word for it. And I'm not particularly familiar with adrenochrome myself, but I have heard rumors. Now, I did read Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, where he does reference this. I think I read that back in 96, 97, but I just thought adrenochrome got you higher than pterodactyl tits. I didn't realize that it actually curtailed the aging process as well. So I was like, oh, that's pretty weird. But additionally, what he said on top of the weird women at the thing and the blood drinking and all that, he said the thing that finally broke him and turned him to God and made him kind of give up, music as a career, as a lifestyle, was when he got his contract from the record label and went through it with his lawyer. Apparently, one of the provisions in there, one of the parts of the deal, was he had to give up his firstborn child in exchange for this record deal. Now, if you know anything about the Illuminati, and I'm not claiming I do, one of the rumors I've heard is it's compulsory to sacrifice somebody close to you in order to be able to join this occult organization. And I find it curious that they wanted his firstborn son. And this will become clear later, but part of me suspects that this guy genetically might be related to the Merovingian bloodline. So we'll get into that here in a second. So one night we're chilling in the studio, and I don't even know why this was on my brain. Part of me thinks I had read a David Icke book in the bookstore that I had come across or something, or part of me thinks I'd seen a YouTube video and was kicking it around in my head. Or another thing that's possible is I was dating a girl at the time who claimed she couldn't smoke weed because it would cause her to turn into a werewolf. Yep, your boy Mr. Pitiful really knows how to pick 'em, right? Well, anyway, so we're chilling, sharing a J or something. And I say to the dude, hey man, have you ever heard of the Shapeshifting Reptilian conspiracy? And his answer absolutely floored me. He goes, oh yeah, I've done that before. And I'm like, done what before? And he says, oh, I've shapeshifted into a lizard. Now, I don't think he's lying or making this up. Okay, he just doesn't strike me as the type, and he doesn't even strike me as being all that bright or even being familiar with any of this stuff. Because again, the internet was pretty different back then. A lot of this information wasn't ubiquitous like it is now. But basically, he proceeds to tell me this story about how back in the day, one of the girls who worked at the record label, I don't know if she was just some low-level secretary or some high-level executive, but he basically started hooking up with this chick. And I think he might have been married or had a girl at the time, so he had to keep it on the down low. So they would get hotel rooms out in Hollywood and party and hang out and then, do what adults do. But according to her, and these are his words, not mine, according to her, she witnessed him multiple times shapeshift into a lizard. Okay. Additionally, he said he was kind of aware he was doing it because he said he felt himself grow a tail once or twice. Okay. Weird, right? Now, one of the weird things about working with this guy too, and again, this guy was supremely talented, and let me just say this. This guy is not a celebrity. He is not a household name. He can walk down the street and nobody knows who he is. However, there's a pretty good chance you've heard him sing before. Let's just put it that way. So this guy's the real deal. there were times when I would work with him in the studio, and it's late at night. You know, I probably worked my day job, and now I'm at the studio doing my side hustle, and it's dark, and it's late, and we're tired, and we're full of energy drinks and all this crap. But I'd be in the studio working, and I'm focusing on what I'm doing, because, you know, most of this stuff's done in the computer now. And I would swear out of the corner of my eye that he was Jim Morrison. But like sort of the later Jim Morrison, sort of the drunk, kind of paunchy Jim with the beard, not the young, kind of fresh-faced Jim that most people think of. And it was weird. I'd be chilling, and I'd swear I was sitting next to Jim Morrison, and I'd kind of turn my head, and then obviously it's the dude, but it was pretty weird. And then the more I started kind of putting the puzzle pieces together, well, what did Jim Morrison call himself? He was the Lizard King, right? Super weird. So maybe I'm connecting dots I shouldn't be connecting, but this is all just part of the story, so I'm telling it. And keep in mind, too, for you Illuminati buffs out there, that, Jim Morrison's dad was a pretty big-time Navy guy. In fact, he was involved in the Gulf of Tonkin. Yes, that was a real thing. So the false flag that the U.S. government used as a pretext to start the Vietnam War. So part of me wonders if the Doors was even just a government psyop, through MK Ultra or something like that. Yeah, so in conclusion, I don't think he's lying or making it up. Even if this is all BS, I do believe he really believes it. And he doesn't strike me as crazy. Like I said, he's a successful guy. He's got a great wife. He's got great kids. He's got a nice little life for himself. So I don't think he's crazy or anything. And I think he is telling his truth as he believes it. But in summation, just to kind of wrap it all up, I can't help but think that he might be one of these Merovingian bloodlines. And I'd be curious to know if anybody's ever done Jim Morrison's family tree, his genealogy, if he might be connected to the Merovingians as well. But it seems to me if there really are blood drinking rituals up in the hills, and for some reason they were hell-bent on having this firstborn's kid, this guy's firstborn child as part of the record deal, it would stand to reason that he might be of the Merovingian bloodline and that his blood is somehow special, which is why they wanted him in the fold, apart from his talent, obviously, but also for the, the magic or whatever that his blood has. So there might be something to this. So now, do I believe that shape-shifting reptilians exist? Probably not. It's not likely. Is it possible? Sure. Is it likely? No. But it is curious how many cultures have something similar to this. So, for instance, down in like India and Southeast Asia, you have the Nagas, not Nalgas, Nagas, which were like some kind of serpent god. And I believe shape-shifting was part of their lore. You have the Chinese dragons who came from the sky and basically started the royal families. You have the Japanese water dragons. You have the skinwalkers, which apparently can take multiple forms. That's, kind of more like the Utah, I think, region, Arizona area. So it's a curious thing, but, do I believe in it? Not necessarily. But let me know what you think. Did I meet a shape-shifting reptilian? Is this all just a bunch of bollocks? Am I just naive and was he just pulling my leg? Who knows, but it was one of the more interesting clients that I've ever had in my studio. So if you haven't already, please like, comment, and subscribe to the Mr. Pitiful channel. It really helps me out a lot. And I'll come back at you soon, live and direct, with more crazy stories about my life. Peace out.
The number you have reached,
911, has been changed to a non-published number.